Thank you. Without objection, the recap or / minutes will stand. Thank you. First up for this afternoon, Mr. Anderson, we have a short-term vacation rental enforcement update.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Council. We have now begun the contracting process with Granicus. We have an existing contract with them, and they provide software for our board and other compliance needs. We are waiting on them on their end to set up our user logins. And I should have a more meaningful update at next week's meeting, but we're fast tracking this. The mayor is making it a priority. This is actually the fastest I've ever seen a software contract come through. So,
and this is able to fast track because of the dollar amount?
Yes, it's under $25,000. It's 24 and change, and it is utilizing an existing contract with Granicus. We're just adding to it, and we're adding less than 25.
Very good. If I remember correctly, in 2017, that program was $40,000. So I think that's a good savings.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm seeing no lights, Mr. Anderson. Our next item, if you look in your packet, you will see a resolution placed there by Madam Vice Chair Dotley on honorary street names. So if you'll hit your light, I will yield the floor.
Yes, so I wanted to bring forth a resolution for discussion to possibly delete or rescind the resolution you all have is resolution number 24815. And as of current, all street names, if you do an honorary street name, the person individuals have to be deceased. But wanted to bring up for discussion to possibly delete or rescind this resolution so that we can honor those who are living that have made contributions to our community. And this came up because working with the Bessie Smith Cultural Center and Representative Hakeem, Mr. Kane Brown, which is a country music star, I guess, they wanted to honor a street, do an honorary street name with him, but they were not able to because he's alive. Also with Roland Carter, same issue occurred. They were not able to honor him because they were alive. They were able to with Roland Carter because of UTC owning or having the right of way. They were able to do one for Mr. Carter, but unable to do one for Mr. Kane Brown. So I wanted to bring this up for discussion. You all have the resolution number as well as the original ordinance. The original ordinance that was passed, the amended version, I guess, from 2009, as well as potential amendments to that ordinance in your packets as well. So you will see the first page is the resolution, the next 3 pages is the amendment, and the last page is the actual current ordinance. So open for discussion for that. Any feedback you all can give, or what do we need to do possibly to move forward with the city attorney?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I do have a light for comment. Councilman Henderson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got some reservations personally about reversing this policy. In my lifetime, I've seen names having to be taken off of buildings and off of fields for various reasons. I would like to know that the person finished well before we honored them in a street naming. So personally, I think I would have some reservations. I think there's a good reason that it is this way. And I think I'd like to, and maybe rather than, this person with a street name, we have given like a key to the city. Maybe there's another way that we could honor and pay respect to this person for their contributions without circumventing procedures that are already in place.
Thank you, Councilman. Madam Vice Chair, I'm seeing no other lights for conversation.
Is there
hit your light for me?
Is it okay? Is everybody okay with me just proceeding with working on this resolution and bringing it back, maybe with some additional amendments, or is this not something the council is interested in?
So So the question has been posed to the council. You're hearing the resolution. Is this something that we wish to place on the agenda? I think is the question
Mhm.
we need to ask. And I'm looking around the dais. And
I think I would like to see at least go through the legislative committee
okay,
to address before we put it on the agenda.
very
Okay.
good. So we will assign this to legislative committee.
Okay. That's it.
And that will open up more discussion. And let's do that. Councilman Smith, what does your schedule look like next week? Now, before I ask that, next Tuesday, May 10th, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my calendar. We had no committee meetings. We now have 2 committee meetings, but we also have a 3:30 session with 2 committee meetings with very limited items. Would this be something that you could possibly put in legislative committee next Tuesday?
I'm happy to hear it as soon as it's ready to be heard.
Okay, and
I don't know
my,
if it's in its form or not.
that would be my next question is, Madam Vice Chair, does that give you time to make the edits, corrections, or changes that you would like to make? That's next Tuesday, May 10th. Okay, so Madam Clerk, in addition to we're stacking up next Tuesday, but we have some time, so I feel confident, unlike today. A little nervous. Would you add in legislative committee, please, with the item that Vice Chairwoman Dotley put in our packet this afternoon? Councilman, is that your light?
Thank you, Chair. It was actually to request that this item be in legislative, but then one follow-up. When the legislation is ready, I'd prefer it not to be the day of, so that everybody has a chance to read it before we go into committee, so we're not sitting here reading it when we're just now starting. So if it's ready in enough time, great. If not, we can do it the next week. It just depends on Vice Chairwoman's availability.
Thank you for that. Madam Vice Chair, does that give you time?
Yes, that should give me time to work with our city attorney to get something.
Okay. Councilman? Very good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on to our next item, we have audio visual upgrades and council chamber upgrades. I think we're going to wrap those into 2 different presentations. Councilwoman Burrs, do you want to go first, or Councilman Smith, I see your light. Would you like to go? Ladies first, Dr. Burrs. Yes, ma'am.
So several years ago, before COVID, council wanted some modifications of this room. And everything was put on hold, obviously, because of COVID. And so all of you don't know exactly what they were. We're now ready to go forward with these. The funding is secured. I just need to make sure that this is still what you want, or you want any additions. And let me just read them to you, and then I will also send them to you for your further consideration. We talked about removing and blocking the back door there where the press is. This is all for safety and security. Steel reinforcing this wall. It is not steel reinforced. A divider wall to separate the clerk's desk from everyone else. Removal of the back seating row so that people could walk across the back instead of the front, and cork flooring in the aisleways. Now, this was carefully thought out then. The world has changed. So what I would like to do, sir, if that's okay, is if anyone off the top of their head has something they want added, fine. Otherwise, I'd like to go ahead and send this out. I can send it out tomorrow, or maybe at the end of the day today, so that we can go ahead and get started with whatever my colleagues wish.
Thank you, Dr. Burrs. I'm going to go to Councilman Smith. Is your light on for the audio visual?
It is, sir.
Okay. If you'll allow me, please, sir, we had a meeting a couple Fridays ago here in this room with Bob Franklin, our architect, Mr. Smith, and Mr. Brown, and some other folks, where we discussed, in addition to what you've just laid out for us, a refiguring of the area where staff normally sits, also the media box. Ellis, is that, you have all the notes on that? Yeah, because if you look at that back here, while we're doing the door, leveling that out, it's quite actually dangerous back there in that little door. So I think in the matter of safety, do you want to add anything, Ellis, to that conversation?
Nothing too much. I mean, it's pretty much like what we had talked about prior, adding a short wall here. I think the only difference was when we talked about it before, there's been sort of 3 stages. The initial stage was done years ago. It included many other things as well, pre-pandemic. We had a secondary conversation during the pandemic. And then now that, we've added chairs back and things like that, I think we, with your help, develop sort of a final set of what we want to go forward with at this time. What it's totally up to y'all, of course, but rebuilding that walkway in the back so that folks don't have to walk in front of everyone, and then better utilizing this space back here, I think came back up. So
Hit your light for me, Dr. Burris.
Tell you what, since you all have met since then, why don't I not send it out? Why don't you send it out? And then, because you've had more conversations, and it makes sense.
Yes, ma'am.
Just go ahead and send it out. I was first involved because it would include budgetary considerations of council. It won't anymore. And so we're doing this all as one big package, as with other funds. So why don't you take that
Will
and
do.
just get it done?
Be happy
Thank
to. And thank you for that work you've done on that. Ellis, can we prepare kind of a summary and outline that we can get to council, outlining the conversation, the scope of work, and the project parameters, please?
absolutely. And I did get an email from Bob Franklin, the architect, today with some costs and drawings and things like that. So we'll put
Okay.
those in the bullets for y'all.
Very good. Thank you. And to be clear, the next component conversation piece of this is separate, the
Yes,
audio
sir.
visual. So it's not in the same scope of work. So if we're finished with this conversation, thank you, Dr. Burrs. I'm going to go ahead. Councilman Smith, you want to hit your light for me? If you don't mind, pick up the ball there.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, Mr. Chair. So we've talked for quite some time about getting updates in here. We've had issues and we've made changes over the years, be it from the mic system to the control system up here on the dais to different cameras. But definitely during COVID and a lot of the streaming challenges that we have had, it shows that there's a lot of room for improvement still. So as part of that, Ellis really deserves all the credit for pulling all this together in getting vendor out here, doing full assessments of what we have, what we might need. We've had a bunch of meetings about it. We've gone over a number of different proposals. And Ellis, if you don't mind, I know you've got this slide just to give a high level view to the council members. I'm happy to take any additional questions as the detail if they would like, but we've really analyzed every aspect of what we do up here in the technology and to make it easier for people to take part in the meeting, whether they're here or not, as well as the council members to communicate. So if you don't mind, Ellis.
Yeah, and there's more slides in here than I think we want to get through today, but I put them in there so that y'all can look at them at your leisure if you want more detail about this, that, or the other thing, what we're doing. But very broadly, I mean, we don't need to relitigate the issues with this room, whether that's with reliability or, having to wait for certain things to start working or troubleshooting or whatever. I think that's less of the consideration and more of how do we get to a gig city level of quality in here? When people come to city council, how do we really show them what Chattanooga is and should be all about when we think about how technology driven we are? So with regards to that, these goosenecks that we all love so much, these things are going to go away. We're going to have some different microphones that you can move around with. We're going to program them. So theoretically, you won't have to hit your light, or you forget to or whatever. So that's an example. The lighting up here is terrible. Some of you are sitting in a spotlight. Some of you are in absolute darkness. We're going to add some lights there, even it out, some cameras, and you can keep scrolling through the presentation. We're going to have multiple cameras. So instead of this really cute little webcam that we have up here, we're going to have actual, 4K quality cameras so you can see the person who's addressing you on the broadcast. Speaking of the broadcast, we'll be able to send a stream out to EPB. We're working with EPB on having the public access channels that they have actually have public access content like your meetings and the other meetings that happen here. So, the question is, what if public meetings were really and truly public, like all of them, whether you could get there or not? So we also have the other room that we're contemplating is the city council conference room over here, and we're adding some technology there that'll also make the meetings happen there accessible to more people, be able to hear, be able to see. And so that's really the broad strokes of it. We're getting a new projector. I know you'll all be happy about that. And this microphone in particular, I know sometimes it's hard to hear people when they come up to the podium to speak. There's going to be a special microphone here that will it'll cast a big field basically. So whether you're short or tall, or you stand over here or over there, it'll still pick up your voice. So that's broadly what we're working on. Again, there's lists of things and functionality in this presentation, but rather than go through all that, I'll answer any questions or, one thing I did absolutely want to point out. So if you scroll to the timeline, we did order this stuff in March. Now we have I'm sure you guys are all aware of the supply chain issues that we've been having with COVID. A lot of this stuff comes out of China. China's more or less locked down right now, has been. So some of these dates for shipping some of this equipment have actually slipped as late as November, which sounds outrageous. However, our vendor thinks that because of all the angst that happened earlier in the pandemic when they said, oh, it's coming, and it never showed up, they're actually going the other way. And so they're saying, oh, it's not coming till November, and hopefully it'll actually ship sooner than that. So we are still hopeful that some of this equipment will arrive sooner than that. And we are committed to, during the installation of this equipment, both for this project and for the physical upgrades, working to do that at a time that doesn't interfere with council business. So that's a high priority for us. But I'll take questions if you have any.
Ellis, I see absolutely 0 questions at this time.
Perfect.
If you want to go through each and every item in detail and serial number, that would.
Yeah, I
No?
probably just
Okay.
didn't give enough detail.
Yeah. Very good. Councilman Smith, Ellis, thank you very much for your work on the AV side of this. This is a lot of work. I agree with you. This is Gig City, and we need to reflect that. And I appreciate the hard work that you all have put into this.
Thank you,
And,
Mr. Chair.
Very much. Thank you. Before we move on to our other business, in your packet under special presentations, we were scheduled to have a proclamation by Representative Hakeem. He called me yesterday and said, hey, Darren, Dr. Holmes cannot make it due to a conflict in her schedule. So that presentation I'm going to ask to be removed for tonight. We will reschedule with Representative Hakeem and Dr. Holmes. So wanted to make that a special note this evening. Pending legislative matters, I see none. Dr. Burrs, we have a minute. Do you want to touch over our budget process one more time I don't think that mentioning this in a public forum is ever a bad idea. So
Think we ought to do this over and over again. So next week, as we've said twice already, actually, at the 3:30 session, the budget books will be distributed and we'll get a budget overview. They're going online the budget is going online the same time the distribution is happening. So everybody will get the information at the same time. We'll have a week to peruse the budget. I understand that some of you, hopefully, is there anyone that has not been educated to his or her committee? Good. So you'll be able to answer questions for your constituents. And what we're going to do this year is have everything out in the open, not this continual list of 500 questions that nobody ever looks at again. So don't do that. If there's any questions or concerns or anything, we're going to keep them out in the open and a matter of record. So on the 17th, we're going to have our first educational session, and it'll be on the operating budget. And there'll be presentations. Hopefully those of you that are committee chairs may ask even deeper questions. This is the time to do it. We're going to do it from 10 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon. We're going to have only several sessions, not 4 or 5 weeks of sessions. And I think that's probably good stewardship of our time. Everything is public. Everything is going to be on record. And people obviously are welcome to come and go as they wish. The public, that is. Hopefully you'll stay. On 5/24, we want to do the capital budget, and we think pretty much we can make that deadline. Right now, it looks like we can. More later if we can't. Also, this is where we'll have discussion of any remaining issues, so that any one of you that really wants something discussed, instead of writing it down and it goes into Never Never Land, let's do it right here, because we all may have the same question and we have plenty of time. On the 31st, we'll have the public input session. The chair has set that for 1 hour, 2 minutes each. Then the 7th is first reading, the 14th is second reading. Now, we've left time. If we run over, if we have to have another week, if we have to defer anything, nobody's questions will be left unanswered. Maybe not to their satisfaction, but they will be answered. And they will be answered here, and they will be answered publicly. Any questions or concerns?
Madam Vice Chair.
My question is for the May 17th operating budget, is there an order that each department will present? That way we can maybe let our constituents know, what department is
I think
presenting.
that's a really good question. And Brett will be following that. He's setting
Okay.
up the schedule.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
So
you.
Brent, we'll talk about that. We've talked about it. There's a budget book
Mhm.
that I've reviewed, and there is an order. I don't know if that's the order you want to use to present, but let's leave that up to you since you're in charge of presenting.
Okay. Thank you.
And so we can let everybody know. That's what you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
At a time.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Brent, how soon do you think that can be released?
So the budget books will be provided to you all and released online on May 10th.
Okay.
I think the easiest order is to just go through the book front to back. So all the departments, have letters associated with their cost center, starting with general government, which is A, executive is B, finance is C. So if we go in that order, I think that's the easiest way to follow it,
Okay, makes sense.
as long as Madam Chair of the Budget Committee is okay with that.
All right. She's okay. I'm okay. Everybody okay? Okay. A lot of okays. All right. Thank you, Mr. Goldberg.
Thank you.
Okay, that will conclude our budget discussion and outline. I see future legislation education sessions. We do have a legislative committee for next week, a planning and zoning, a very short, Jermaine's in the house, economic development committee. Councilwoman, I believe you are aware of that, obviously, and you want to share anything on the topic of that? Okay, it's the DuPont TIF presentation, and Jermaine said that would be about 10 minutes, which is why we're trying to be efficient, obviously, with the budget presentation. So we're going to pack in quite a bit of information during that session. Yes, ma'am. Dr. Burrs.
Yeah. Under pending legislation matters, I would like at some point, I guess the legislative chair, to return to our noise ordinance. We've had a lot of conversation about it. At this point, I really mean just return to it, discuss it, and see how it might be tweaked, how citizens are being protected or not being protected. So at this point, Mr. Chair, discussion.
Councilwoman Hill, I believe the space is blank. I'm placing everybody correctly.
I am in full support of resuming our conversation about the noise ordinance. I think we got a reprieve in the winter, but I have a feeling that now that the weather's warming up, I'm noticing a lot more motorcycles on the road, loud vehicles, and complaints are going to start from citizens. We've got to do something about it. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Smith, I'm hoping you will set a date.
Same, Mr. Chair. This is another one where I'm happy to have the meeting as soon. But are we talking about reviewing existing legislation or just a conversation about what people may be interested in doing?
I think it's two. I think it's reviewing existing legislation. And then and then a discussion. For example, if the police are called in with noise, they have to be at something like 300 feet away from, they need to hear it that far away. Well, our city's changed now. So, I mean, there's tweaking that really addresses the real noise problems that people have in neighborhoods and stuff. And obviously on the streets, motorcycles. So I don't have any agenda other than I think we need to rethink noise in our city.
Thank you, Dr. Burrs. Councilman Smith, I'm looking at my calendar. We have a lot coming ahead of us with budget. Are you looking at your calendar as
I
well?
am.
I was looking for our next strategic planning session, if applicable.
And it sounds like, Mr. Chair, this is going to be potentially a longer conversation simply because there's probably a number of council members that need to brush up on the current ordinance and then may have a lot of questions about that. So we may want to also have CPD here and any others that may be able to help answer some of those regarding enforcement. So I think we need to allot for a decent amount of time.
So I'm going to throw out a date, if you tell me how this works for you, because I think the budget's going to consume most of our time, and we need to,
Agreed.
given what I'm hearing from council, they would like to spend the time on this June 7th in our strategic planning meeting.
Yeah, June 7th works just fine for me, Chair.
Okay, anybody comments on that date? Okay, Madam Clerk, will you add in on June 7th, please, a conversation on our noise ordinance? And we might also want to invite CPD and then give them time
that
to
date.
get on their schedule. Okay, very good.
And may I also request that the ordinance be sent out to the council, the
Yes,
current ordinance?
agreed. Madam Clerk, thank you. All right. Very good. Thank you, everyone. So we're going to add that in for June 7th. Moving down into our agenda, we have our 3 meetings, committee meetings for next week. I think we'll be fine there. Board appointments, if you'll take a look at that on your own. No attorney-client is requested for this afternoon. And I would like to say, before we move on, is that an old light, Councilman Smith?
No, sir.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I was just real quick on the board appointments. Just to confirm, are all of these still valid? I know we've changed some boards, either condensed some, eliminated some. Are all 4 of these current boards that we do have active that definitely do need these positions filled?
I'm going to ask Mr. Anderson if he could take a look at that and confirm that for us. I'm not going to put you on the spot to do it, but it's a question if you don't
I mean,
mind.
these all
yes,
do
sir.
look active, but just to make sure, because there were others on here that are not on here anymore, like multicultural affairs, and there were some seats that needed to be filled, and those are no longer here. So just to confirm that these are still 4 active, and there may be others.
Just off the top of my head, Councilman, I can look at the list and tell you that most of them are vacant on this list. If you'll give me until the 2:30 agenda session, I'll have an answer on everything, all of these positions that are listed here.
Great.
Okay,
Thank you,
will
sir.
you shoot us all an email on that, Chris?
Perfect, yes.
Thank you. And I do
Thank you,
know
Chair.
we have some coming through, Councilman, in resolution format, our new format for
Great.
appointments. So I appreciate you bringing that up. So this afternoon, we are going to have a lot in our agenda session, and I can already hear the chuckles. Planning and zoning will be quite eventful. We have 23 items plus an ADU presentation. Councilwoman Hill, our chairman of planning and zoning, has asked me to take this particular meeting because, well, I'm not sure why. I thought you liked me. But mainly because I was at Planning Commission last month, so I'm a little more familiar with the cases, and she will obviously pick up after this month's Planning Commission. So here's what I'd like to ask everyone, if you would, while our break, we're going to probably be finished here in just a few minutes. For our 2:30 session, as we move into Planning and Zoning Committee, go ahead and take a look at the items in your district. And we have 6 items that are in opposition, had opposition at Planning Commission. In following some of those, I have already found out, especially one in my district, that the conditions have already been pretty much worked out. So I think there is not a lot of conversation there because of the work that's already been done. I feel that that may be the same. We have the rest of the items coming to us with no denials, all approvals, and 0 opposition at Planning Commission. So we're going to be watching the clock very carefully. I hope to start planning and zoning right at 3 o'clock. We do have a Parks and Public Works meeting ahead of that. We have some items that we need to take care of, Chairman Hester. Also a presentation and some animals coming from the Chattanooga Zoo. So we're going to be moving fast and furious this afternoon. But the items without opposition are coming with an approval. I'm going to leave it open for Karen to be available for questions. But if they're not needed, any specific information, then we're going to move on those because you are familiar with those items in order to meet our deadline for starting our meeting today at 4 o'clock. Any questions or comments, please? So if I sound a little bit like an auctioneer later, you'll know why. And we will make sure we cover our items though. Okay, any other questions or comments for strategic planning? Then this body will adjourn back here, adjourn now and back here at 2:30.